the first scary movie you ever saw in your life? Can you remember it? I remember mine like yesterday. I was 7 years old, and I went over to my friend Dan's house, 2 houses down, and we're hanging out as first graders do, and Dan just so happened to have an older brother, Kyle. So Kyle thought it would be really fun to do something with his little brother and his friend. He said, "Hey, do you guys want to see something cool?" We said, "Yeah, we want to see something cool. We're 7, we don't know anything." So he turns on the TV and starts a movie that just so happened to be called The Shining. And all I'm gonna say is, as a 7-year-old boy, I was absolutely traumatized and still am to this day. I kid you not. After I saw the movie, I couldn't go down in our basement for a little while at our house. I needed all the doors open at night. I got a night light. It was horrific. And for those of you who don't know this movie, it actually used the Stanley Hotel in Estes Park for its setting. And so anytime I go into Estes, I struggle. And Nicole and I last year, we actually took a tour of Stanley Hotel. And as we're walking to this hotel, I'm like gripping Nicole's hand. I'm like, "Babe, you do not let go, because you don't understand. This place is haunted on levels you can't even believe." So I still have some PTSD from that experience. But it's kind of funny. Scary movies, Halloween, maybe haunted houses, maybe just going in your basement at night. It kind of gets you thinking about like scary stuff. You know, kind of dark stuff maybe, even evil things. And yes, I am a grown man now, so I know The Shining is not real, but I still will absolutely never in my life ever watch that movie again. Okay, I don't want to be within 10 feet of that movie, but it's Hollywood magic. So we know movies aren't real, and we know a lot of times these types of things, the entire goal is to get you scared. That's what they're trying to do. That's part of the deal. But when it comes to real life, we know better. We do. Like, we know what's real, we know what's fake. We've got science and rationality and all these things. We know how to use our brains. But there's this professor, his name's Andrew Delbanco, out of Columbia University. He's just a secular academic. He wrote a book with a fascinating title. He called this book The Death of Satan. And through his studies and his research, he was looking at how different cultures over the last few centuries have viewed evil. And he pointed out how today in the 21st century, we primarily view evil as having natural causes. So it's psychological stuff, it's sociological factors. But then in his book, he makes this pretty profound point where he says this: a gulf has opened up in our culture between the visibility of evil and the intellectual resources available for coping with it. So there's one thing I know we all can agree on here today. We can all agree that there are horrible things that happen in our world. Fair? Horrific things sometimes. Evil things. And what Delbanco is saying here is the tools that we are using today to try to understand, to try to explain, and even handle so much of the evil we do see is insufficient. And we actually cannot fully comprehend everything that we even experience in our own lives, which brings us to the series that we are launching today, a brand new one. I've been planning for a long time, guys. We are simply calling Battles. Yeah, that'd be a pretty cool series, titling Battle. Let's go. And I'm gonna give you guys the premise of the whole series right now from the top so you know where this is going. The whole premise is there are battles raging in our world today. Some serious conflicts, 3 in particular that we have to deal with. And these are 3 particular battles that our culture struggles to see, that doesn't fully understand and can't really engage in. And every single person here, whether you realize it or not, you are in the middle of these battles. You're fighting these fights whether you know or not. And if you actually want to make it through this life and not just be a casualty of these conflicts, you absolutely must learn how to engage. And last week was even just Veterans Day, which, man, I know we have so many servicemen and women in our church. Can we just honor them for a moment, church? We are grateful. Oh, my goodness. So grateful for all of you. Thank you for your service. And I know for some of the men and women in our church who have experienced conflict and war, you know without a doubt that it is an ugly thing. It's sometimes a nightmare lived out in real life, and that is actually how the Bible speaks about these battles as well. The Bible basically says these are not pretty. And so that kind of sets up the conversation we're going to ease into the next couple weeks, where I want to talk about the spiritual battle. The spiritual battle. Now, as we get into this series, I just want to acknowledge something. There are going to be a lot of us in here, whereas even today, you hear some of the things I talk about, there's going to be something in you that just goes, really, Brian? Like, oh, come on. I don't know, man. Like, you believe that stuff? And I actually understand that thought completely. And so for all of us in here, I actually just want to challenge us to have a few questions that we're going to consider as we go through this. So just to have these in the back of your mind, a couple questions to consider. So first thing I want us to be asking ourselves as we lean into this series, is it possible my view of good and evil is limited? So, there are different thought leaders and extremely intelligent people throughout history, even lived alive today, who would view the spiritual dynamics that we're about to talk about as a very legitimate explanation for some of the things we see in our lives. And so we just have to ask, do I really think that I have zero gaps in the way I think about this topic? Or maybe there's still some things for me to learn, but here's the second question worth asking. Am I too influenced by my current cultural context? There are many cultures around our world that have no issues even questioning some of the things we're going to talk about in this series. And so we just have to ask ourselves, do we really think 21st century Americans have an absolute monopoly on all truth and reality? Hopefully not. Hopefully we don't believe that. Another question though, something worth asking. Do I believe in God or supernatural forces? Now, if you do, then if there are good spiritual forces, is it possible that there's also maybe some bad ones? Okay, worth considering. And the last one's not a question, but it's something we need to address. If the Bible is right and we do not agree, we will not be able to handle the battles we face. And so we just have to wrestle with this. If what the Bible says is truly accurate about our experience, then we have to adjust our lives accordingly so we can be properly equipped for what's going to come up against us. And now that leads us into the first passage I want to get into. This is a fascinating part of the Bible because God is having a conversation with somebody. And so God is speaking to this person, and he says this in Ezekiel 28, "You were the seal of perfection, full of wisdom and perfect in beauty. You were in Eden, the garden of God. I ordained and anointed you as the mighty angelic guardian. From the day you were created, you were blameless in your ways." Now, the person we're told God is speaking to here is referred to as Lucifer, which is just a translation of this title, Morning Star, Shining One, Light Bearer, which actually, that's a pretty powerful name right there. And we see that this Lucifer was created by God as one of the highest ranking angels. This Lucifer had a supreme position in heaven. But then God says this, until wickedness was found in you. And so Isaiah actually is another moment where God is speaking to this Lucifer. He says this, "You said in your heart, I will ascend to heaven and set my throne above the stars of God." And here's what we see happens. This angel, Lucifer, decides that he does not want to worship God. He wants to be God. And because of this, Revelation, again, this is taught through the whole Bible, tells us what then went down. And it says this, that ancient serpent, who is called the devil and Satan, the deceiver of the whole world, he was thrown down to the earth, and his angels were thrown down with him. So Lucifer then gets this new title, Satan or the devil, which is kind of this interchangeable title name, which can mean adversary, accuser, opponent, slanderer, even false accuser. And what we're told then is this Satan, the devil, was actually cast out of heaven with a whole other host of fallen angels for an attempted coup against God. And so now Satan has made his base of operations here in this world. Jesus himself calls Satan the ruler of this world. Paul calls him the God, lowercase g, of this world. And even John in a letter says the whole world is under the control of the evil one. And so now Paul in another letter tries to orient us to this moment now we find ourselves in. Because we've got all the context now. So he's like, how do you understand your life right now? And this is what Paul says about our moment. For we are not fighting against flesh and blood enemies. This is not just a human thing, but against evil rulers and authorities of the unseen world, against mighty powers in this dark world, and against evil spirits in the heavenly places. What is Paul saying? Paul is saying there are very real, evil, and dark forces that are actively opposing and working against God and his good purposes in this world. And that so much of the evil that we do experience in this world is influenced by these spiritual dynamics that we can't even see with our own eyes. And Paul says, this is not just some random thing. No, he says, there are rulers. There's authorities, there's structure to this thing, there's organization, there's strategy to it. And so Paul is like, you must understand, there is a massive spiritual battle raging all around you. Welcome to New Hills Church. Now let me slow down for a second. Dude, I know with a topic like this, it's dicey. Okay, this is a topic you gotta be very careful with. So I'm really trying to tread carefully. Anytime you talk about a topic like this, there's a lot of mistakes that can be made. And so I actually want to talk about two mistakes here even right now that are so commonly made whenever we talk about something like this. The first mistake people make with this is they just assume everything is the devil. You ever meet somebody like this? They like stub their toe and they're like, get behind me, Satan. It's like, bro, you kicked the table, okay? They're in traffic, they're like, devil, you will not stop me today. It's like, you left 30 minutes late, okay? You did that all by yourself. And sometimes you can fall into this trap of every single little minor inconvenience in your life is this cosmic battle of epic proportions. And that's a mistake. Now, there's a second mistake, though, too. And some of us, you might end up slipping more in this direction where you kind of land where nothing is the devil. And with this one, there's some people where, Satan can slap you right across the face and you wouldn't even know it. And C.S. Lewis, the famous scholar author, he actually said this on this very idea. There are two equal and opposite errors into which our race can fall about the devils, demonic forces, evil. One is to disbelieve in their existence. The other is to believe and to feel an excessive and unhealthy interest in them. They themselves, the devils, these forces, are equally pleased by both errors. And so I think C.S. Lewis is onto something here where he's saying, hey, Satan doesn't even really care which side you land on, because he can get you either way if you're making one of these mistakes. And especially if you're new here at New Hills today, you're like, what Sunday did I just come in on? You need to know this is not a hobby horse topic for us. Anybody who's been around this church for a while, you know this is not like some hobby horse thing. We are not an everything is the devil kind of church. We are absolutely not. But at the same time, we do not want to be a church that avoids hard topics just because they're uncomfortable. Amen, is that worth saying? Guys, it is so important that we commit to being biblical and balanced in our approach to everything God talks about. And so this is one of those areas where we at least have to take some time to engage in this so we can be equipped for these battles that are going to come our way. So I am really just trying to help our church right now. I want you to be able to handle what's going to come your way in your life. But there's one other reason really why I think it's important we talk about this. I had a birthday last week, and thank you. What'd you get me? So every time I have a birthday coming up, Nicole, she wants to make it a thing. So she's like, all right, babe, come on. You want to go out on the town? You want to do a fancy dinner? You want to spend some money? Come on, let's do this thing. I want to make this a big deal. And so I was like, okay, babe, you know what I really, really want to do for my birthday? I kind of want to act like a middle school boy for a day and go paintballing. Is that okay? One guy is tracking with me today. I was like, I kind of just want to go paintballing. Is that okay? Now, church, I don't want to brag, but I'm pretty good at paintball. I know that makes you proud of your pastor. I'm pretty good at paintball. I got some skills. And so I'm out on this paintball field just the other day, just running around, just lighting up all these other middle school boys who are also having birthday parties. And I'm having a great time. I'm crushing it, okay? I'm just owning the whole field. And there was one particular game where, I'll be honest, I was getting a little cocky. So I was getting a little loose. And so at the start of the match, the ref blows a whistle, and I just sprint down that field. I'm like, I'm about to take some people out. So I'm starting shooting, I'm going all crazy. And before I know it, I just feel my back light up with fire. Like I'm in immense pain, and I'm freaking out. And I turn around, and there is this little punk kid with a rental gun just cheap shotting me from this corner. My entire back still is just covered in welts, even right now. And here's what's so frustrating about that. It didn't matter that I had a better gun, that I had way more skills, that I was bigger and better in every way. I didn't see this kid. I didn't see him. See, sometimes the most dangerous enemy is the one you can't see. Peter, in the New Testament, says this: be alert and sober-minded. Your enemy, the devil, prowls around like a roaring lion, looking for someone to devour. Now, Peter does not say, hey, just be a little careful. The little white Cocker Spaniel comes out every now and then. He's going to nip at your ankles. Just put him back in the kennel. The poodle's loose. No, you have an enemy. And he is strong. He is powerful. And he is hungry. And Satan wants to wreak havoc on your life. He is coming after your marriage. He wants to devastate it. He is looking for your kids. He wants to ruin their lives. And this is a fight that you did not choose, but it chose you. And you do not get to decide whether you want to fight or not. Satan has already stormed the beaches, and he has a very, very large and powerful army. So welcome to the draft, everybody. If you don't figure out how to engage in this battle, you are going to get eaten alive. You will be devoured. You are not going to make it. And so you better learn how to fight. And so let's turn the conversation here and let's talk about winning the spiritual battle now. How do you engage in this war that you find yourself in. And there's so many passages in the New Testament that really hone in on this topic of spiritual warfare, but there's one verse in particular where James actually essentially gives us a battle plan. It's a very simple strategy for stepping into this battle that you find yourself in. And to start the verse off, James, again, he was a brother of Jesus. He simply says this: submit yourselves then to God. So the first thing we see here that you absolutely must do if you want to be able to engage in this battle is very simply, you better make sure that you fall in. Now, this term submit, it sounds kind of weak, doesn't it? Just submit. It's actually not a term of weakness, it's a military term. It means to form ranks. It means to line up under authority and come under your commanding officer. So falling in is not a passive act of weakness. It's a conscious choice of getting in alignment with the proper leadership in your life. And here's a key idea of spiritual warfare in the Bible. It is this: you cannot win this battle alone. You better not charge into that battlefield thinking you're hot stuff. And see, you are not strong enough, but your commanding officer is. Do not fall into this trap of thinking that God and Satan are in some sort of cosmic arm wrestling match where they're both just like in a stalemate until we see what happens. That's not it at all. We just read a minute ago, Satan was created by God. He rebelled, but he's just a created being. He can't do anything outside of the purview of what God allows. This is like a who's your daddy kind of situation, okay? So Satan is not an issue for God, but he is an issue for you if you don't have God. Just a few weeks ago, I took my kids to Chuck E. Cheese. And you say you take your kids there, but really the only reason you have kids is so you can go to Chuck E. Cheese and not be weird as an adult. So I went to Chuck E. Cheese, I brought my kids. And there was one game though that my kids just loved. We played it over and over again. It was like this space battle video game where you're like a ship in space and you're shooting all the bad things. And so they loved this game because at the final level, the final boss was this giant spider, okay? And so they just thought that was so cool. And the spider was worth 25 tickets, everybody. So I wanted to beat the spider so I could get my stale Tootsie Roll at the gift shop afterwards. So we're going in this game and my kids' chips just keep getting blown up every single time. And so finally, I had to circle the wagons of my kids. I'm like, listen, guys, if you actually want to beat the spider, you need to follow my lead because you stink at this game. You are horrible. You need me to beat this thing. And so I need you to follow my ship. I'll protect you. I got your back. And see, this is exactly what God is trying to say to so many of us. He's like, trust me, bro. I know better than you. I actually know a few things. And so if you will just follow me, get under my authority, your life is going to get so much better. Is God really the authority in your life? Man, we are so good at giving God lip service, aren't we? I'm in church right now, Brian. Doesn't that count for something? I'm going to say a prayer at Thanksgiving dinner in front of all my family. Hey, on Christmas Eve, I'm going to thank baby Jesus for everything he did for me. There is a big difference between acknowledging God's existence and being under God's authority. Most people have not fallen in. And if you are not under God's authority, you are also not under God's protection. You are running into the battlefield with a butter knife. So how do you know if you're under God's authority? How do you know? How can you be sure? It's actually pretty simple. How do you know if you're fallen in with God? Do you follow the commands of your commanding officer? Do you obey when he tells you to do something? Because this is basically what the Bible says. If you are not in alignment, you have not fallen in with the commands of your commanding officer, you have a breach in your life. It's a weak spot. There's a vulnerability, and this is exactly what Paul is talking about when he says this, and do not give the devil a foothold. Now again, this is another military term here. This is why the whole series is called Battles. A foothold was talking about an opening that the enemy would use against you. So it's a breach. And so what are some of the footholds that Satan is trying to even get in your life? What are they? It's a really interesting verse in the New Testament. You can just pass over it if you're not paying attention. But it gives us some really powerful clues here. Look what Paul says in 2 Corinthians. He says, I have forgiven in the sight of Christ for your sake. And he gives the reason now. In order that Satan might not outwit us, for we are not unaware of his schemes, his strategies. So catch this though. What is Paul saying here? Paul is saying, the reason I'm choosing to forgive in this particular situation is because I don't want Satan to use it against us. I don't want to give him a foothold in our lives. And so what you see here, though, is one of the areas Satan's going to try to come against you is he will do anything he can to exploit the relational drama in your life. So he's going to come after those little breaches of bitterness that start to seep in. He's going to be looking for those moments of just resentment. And he's going to come after you when there's these unresolved issues you have with people. And this is what you have to see, guys. In so many cases, it's not just, oh, I have some people problems. No, it's there are spiritual breaches that have happened. And now Satan is going to try to work that foothold to create more chaos in your life and even damage some of your most important relationships. So you got to get this. This is why it is so important that you take so seriously to tend to your relationships. Because they're a spiritual battleground. You need to lean in and have the hard conversations with people. You need to step out and have the heart-to-hearts. You need to try and repair as much as you possibly can some of the brokenness that you find with the people in your life, because Satan's looking for opportunities to not just damage you, but other people you care about and some of the most important relationships in your life. These are footholds he tries to get. Now, there's another very common breach and foothold that happens to us. The Bible talks about this ongoing, habitual, even unchecked sin that we sometimes have in our lives that we haven't dealt with. And so every time we choose sin instead of falling in with God, we are exposing ourselves. It's a breach. And this is why it's not just, yeah, I probably do drink a little bit too much. I gotta work on that. You've got a breach. That is a weak spot in your life that Satan's gonna come after. Guys, it's not just, oh, yeah, my boyfriend, my girlfriend, we do sleep together, we are living together. I know it's not ideal. Guys, you gotta know, Satan has a foothold in your life. He is going to exploit that. Guys, it's not just, yeah, my husband, my wife, we do fight a lot. We're actually not even talking to each other right now. Guys, the enemy is behind your gates. He's gonna get in there. Guys, it's not even just, yeah, we're kind of loosey-goosey with our budget. We don't really manage our finances that well. Guys, you are not under the authority and protection of God even over your own money. You think Satan's not gonna come after that? You have an enemy who is looking for every single unlocked door and open window in your life. So what are your breaches? Where are the weak spots in your life? Where have you given Satan some ground? Where is he going to try and sneak in? If you have any hope of surviving this battle, you absolutely must fall in line with God and then build a life that is secure from spiritual attack. You better fall in. Now, there's a second thing you need to do, though. Second aspect of engaging in this spiritual battle. And after you've fallen in, again, the order is important. You now have to make sure that you hold the line. Let's go back to James here. He says this is the second step in the battle plan. He says, resist the devil. Now, again, this is another military term. Resist means to take a stand in battle. It means to dig your feet in the ground and press back. And guys, this is what I love so much about the Bible and what God tells us. Guys, as followers of Jesus, we don't run. We do not retreat. No, see, when that enemy starts coming, you take your sword out and you start charging. That is what the people of God do, okay? We are fighters, okay? And there is not a single place in the entire Bible where we are told to be intimidated by Satan. You are never told to be afraid because you are engaging in a battle you can win. Now, this is what Paul says about this hold the line thing. He says, finally, be strong in the Lord and in his mighty power. That is falling in. Again, God's authority, God's protection. Then he says, put on the full armor of God so that you can take your stand. Resist against the schemes of the devil. You see, this is a battle, everybody. You need to take a stand. Paul says you need to hold the line in your life. And these schemes are strategies. They're plans. These are the organized operations of the devil. And Paul is saying you need to learn how to resist and hold the line and use the right weapons. Now, the weapons that God gives us are indicators for the types of weapons that we're fighting against. So follow me here. Paul says, stand firm then, hold the line with the belt of truth. Truth. Truth is a piece of equipment that God gives you to engage in the spiritual battle. Now, when we think of spiritual warfare, a lot of times our minds go to, again, scary movies. All the creepy creatures and all those weird, gross things. But one thing you need to understand is Satan is perfectly happy to remain stealthy. You could actually argue that he prefers covert operations. And we see one of Satan's primary strategies here in the Bible. Revelation says he is the deceiver of the whole world. Jesus himself says this about Satan: he is a liar and the father of lies. And so, what is one of Satan's favorite weapons? Lies. Deception. And when we think about lies, I think sometimes we think about those things as like little harmless things we do to avoid awkward situations, right? It's like you pull in, you're like, oh, so sorry we were late. Traffic was so bad. It's like there was not a single car on that road. You left 45 minutes late. That's what actually happened. But again, you don't want the awkward situation. Somebody asks you to do something. You're like, oh, sorry, we're actually busy that night. You are not busy at all. You're going to be sitting at home watching Netflix, eating ice cream. That's what you're doing that night. But again, you just don't want the awkward situation. Sometimes you get that gift, right? And you're like, oh my goodness, I love it. And in your head, you're like, I have never wanted a piece of junk less in my entire life, right? Facebook Marketplace tomorrow. These little, just white little lie things. Again, we just don't want awkward situations. But see, lies are one of the most destructive weapons known to man. And Satan is an expert at them. The first time Satan speaks in recorded history, he uses this very strategy. When he's speaking to Eve, look what he says. Did God really say, you can't eat from any tree in the garden? That is a master at his craft right there. So you see what Satan's doing right here? Ever so slightly, he's starting to distort without denying. Very, very subtle. And he's not creating a clear contradiction. He's just getting Eve to ever so slightly question the truth. And very subtly and indirectly, he's also suggesting that God is not who he says he is. Because he's suggesting here that God doesn't have Eve's best interest in mind. So very carefully, he starts reeling that hook in, which leads then to his next lie where he tells her, you will certainly not die. And again, one of Satan's favorite strategies. Oh, no. See, that's not going to hurt you. That's actually going to be good for you. No, you're going to like that. No, see, God's holding something back from you. Trust me, this is going to make your life better. Now, M. Scott Peck is a famous psychiatrist. He says something that is just profound. He says, people become evil when they believe lies and with their body live as if the lie were true. What does a lie do? It twists and even distorts reality. So you're actually not in alignment with what is real. And it's not even so much that you believe it, it's that then you start to live as if that untruth were reality. And so what then goes on is these truths, these false truths, become ticking time bombs. Because it's only a matter of time before they go off. And Adam and Eve, in this moment, they take a bite of this fruit thinking it was good, not realizing that they were putting a grenade in their mouths. There's a reason why some of Satan's lies are so hard to detect. They almost never show up on the radar. And we're told why that is the case. Paul says this, Satan disguises himself as an angel of light. So Satan is a master at appearing like an ally. He knows how to look like a friend. He knows how to put on the uniform that you're wearing. He knows how to look helpful. And so some of the most destructive lies in our world are actually camouflaged in positive, empowering messages. That's not greed. That is good financial planning. That's not materialism. That is treating yourself. No, you see, that's not slander. That's politics. No, see that right there? That's not a hateful social media post. That is a display of moral courage right there. No. That's not gossip. That's being open and transparent. You're just sharing your heart. That's not selfishness, that's self-care. That right there, that's not lust. That is passionate love. No, see, that's not compromising your values. That's showing grace. That's not taking the life of an unborn baby. That's empowering women. No. That's not mutilating children. That is gender-affirming care. There is a battle for truth raging in our world today. And some of the worst evils imaginable are cloaked in these false, deceptive messages of compassion, virtue, and love. and there are mangled corpses littered all over the battlefield. This is why, if you are a follower of Jesus, you better hold that line like your life depends on it, because it does. You better resist every single attack that Satan brings into your life. I'm telling you, you better know the truth. You better know it. Because you're going to have to stand firm. But you see, if you follow the battle plan, James says you need to fall in. We submit to God. You get under his authority in your life. And then secondly, you have to hold that line. You resist against the attacks that come your way. He says you actually can expect a very certain outcome. You have a guarantee, because James says this is what is going to happen to Satan. He will flee from you. You need to understand today, if you are standing with God today, Satan cannot stand against you. His only option is to retreat. And you need to know today, you are fighting a battle you can win. This is why Paul says this: if God is for us, who can be against us? The answer being no one, nothing. Not even the devil himself. It doesn't matter what comes against you, how dark the forces are, what the evil is. Even if Satan is personally coming your way, you can win. And the reason you can win is because the greatest battle has already been won. Look what Paul says in Colossians, talking about Jesus. He disarmed the spiritual rulers and authorities and made a public spectacle of them, triumphing over them by the cross. Again, this is more war language. Disarmed, it means to strip the enemy of their weapons. So Paul's saying Jesus took away every single power that they have. But even a public spectacle, that's when the general of the winning army would actually parade the losing army right through the middle of the city to show, hey, here's the people who've been conquered. You don't even need to worry about them anymore. And Paul says Jesus did all of this through the cross. Because you see, there was a moment in time when Satan and all the forces of evil said, here's our opportunity to use our greatest weapon against God himself, death. And we are going to end God once and for all. And so when Jesus was taken off that cross and placed in that tomb, the devil and all his demons were high-fiving, saying, we did it, we won the war, it's all over, we own this place now. So a couple days later, they went to check the tomb out just to brag over their spoils, and they opened it up and they went, uh-oh, because that tomb was empty, everybody. And our God triumphed. He rose in victory. And you need to know today, Jesus has defeated death. He has defeated Satan. And there is a day when he is going to end him once and for all. And this is why John tells us this: he who is in you is greater than he who is in the world. You see, when you place your faith in Jesus, when you fall in with God with all of your heart, the very presence of the undefeated God comes to live inside of you. You have the power of God fighting with you, fighting for you. And so, if you are in Jesus today, because he has won, through him, you will win. In Jesus' name, everybody. In Jesus' name. And so, church, I want to invite us to stand today. We're going to sing one last song together, and I want you to sing this as a battle cry. I want you to sing this as a victory chant, church, because in Jesus, we win. So let's sing out together today.